Carlsbad. People, Purpose, and Impact. An essential podcast for those who live, work, visit, and play in Carlsbad.
Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Brett Schanzenbach, and I am the president and CEO of the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, and I am your host today. And I'm excited to have with me Karen Graham. Karen is the founder and CEO of the Rory Graham Jr. Foundation. Good afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, anytime.
I'm glad you took the time to join us. So, Karen, you have been active in our community for quite a number of years. I have, going all the way back to like the 1990s, I had that you were one of the 10 women of merit that was recognized by the North County Times back in 1997, and a founder of Moms United Prayer Support Group at Army-Navy Academy, and a Volunteer of the Year at Major General Raymond Murray High School. I always have a hard time saying that one, in Vista. So you've been very active. So tell us about what drives you to be so involved in your community and all the activities you do.
Well, I guess it stems from my grandfather. My grandfather was president of the California Baptist State Convention, and he had 14 grandchildren, and the top 4 were girls.
Uh-huh.
And he said, to keep us out of trouble, we have to stay busy in the church. So he always would make, and since I wasn't athletic because of my physical challenge, he would always give me speeches to say or invite somebody to do something in the church program. So I was never able to stop volunteering or helping in the community. And when I was in college and in high school, I worked for Tom Bradley at City Hall.
Oh.
I did his...
that was in L.A.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I was the coordinator for the Get Out to Vote for the African-American students in the urban cities. I was in charge of 4 high schools to get the 18-year-olds to vote for Tom Bradley.
Wow.
So I've been involved ever since I could walk.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's great. And tell us a little bit about the Moms United Prayer Support Group at Army-Navy Academy.
Okay, that happened when my son was assigned to be chaplain in his sophomore year at Army-Navy Academy. This has never happened. The senior young man who was supposed to pray that day wasn't there. And so Dean Leisure of Dean Academics asked Rory Jr. to pray. And he said, after he finished, he said, "You got the job." So Rory, and then there was a group called Cadets for Christ and Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yes.
And so he said, "Mom, I'm in charge of 2 groups at the school." I said, "Okay, I need your help." I said, "Okay, what I'll do is I'll start a mom's group and we'll pray for you guys, okay?"
There we go.
So we had, the first year, I had about 20 moms that come every Friday at 3 o'clock. And they gave me a key to the chapel. And we prayed. We had T-shirts that said Moms United on it. And at the end of the year, we had a luncheon for all of the senior moms, sponsored by Moms United.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, and you mentioned, of course, your son, Rory, which is what your current efforts are centered around. And for those in our listening audience who don't know his story, why don't you go ahead and tell us about Rory and his journey?
Okay. Rory Jr., well, first of all, they thought he was white because his name was Rory.
Oh, that's funny.
When we went to inquire about Army and Navy Academy, well, no, first we met the teacher, Mr. Anderson, and he said, "Are you lost?" We were walking around the campus, and I said, "No, we're not lost." And he goes, "Well, what can we do for you?" I said, "My son would like to come here. My tradition is if you get A's and B's, I take you to the most expensive restaurant I can afford to show you how life can be when you get good grades. You get a good job." So Rory had just came from church, and we stopped off at Army-Navy Academy. I said, "Now, see, this is America right here. the famous, the rich, middle class. It's all in one campus. So when Mr. Anderson stopped us, he said, "Were we lost?" And I said, "No, we're inquiring of having him go here." So the first thing he asked him was, "What sports do you play?" And I stood there and I said, "That's interesting." And so Roy
He
said,
just assumed.
"You're right." Roy said, "I played football, basketball, and I run track." And then I said, "Roy, tell him what happened." He said, "I got most valuable player at the Christian high school in Ontario, California." And he told him he rushed for 684 yards at the school. And he said, "Okay, well, what are you going to be?" At that time, Roy wanted to be a CEO, like one of the business people that he's on, Bill Gates. That's what he said. Or John P. Diddy Combs. They were cool guys. So, and I said, "Okay, you want to be one of those guys." But anyway, so Mr. Enns, I said, "Roy, show him your report card." Well, Rory had an A in math. And so Mr. Anderson was the chairman of the math department.
That got his attention.
He shook Roy's hand and said, "Welcome to Army Navy Academy. I will write the recommendation for you to come here."
Oh, that's wonderful.
So we filled out the application. Now I thought I had checked the box of what ethnicity he was, but apparently she overlooked it, and because his name is Rory. And see, there's no black boys named Rory. He was named after the white cowboy Rory Calhoun.
Oh,
his grandmother loved that cowboy. So his name had to be Rory. So when we get to the admission office, her name is Mrs. Green. She goes, "Is your name Todd? Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, we're here for our interview." She said, "Oh, you must be Tyrone." I said, "No." "You must be Jamul." I said, "No." "You must be Kevin." I was like, "No." "Well, I don't have your name on my list." I said, "Yes, you do. His name is the biggest name on the marquee." She goes, "Rory?" I was like, "Yes." It's unusual for you to see a black boy named Rory.
Oh, man.
And so the coach used to call him Calhoun because he knew about the history of Rory Calhoun, the cowboy.
Yeah.
And so that's how that started. Like I said, he got chaplain as a sophomore. And then after he graduated in 2009, he passed away. And then 2 years later, my godson, Devin Watson, was in the school. I used to go watch him play basketball.
Basketball, yes.
And General Stephen Bliss, the president at that time, said, "Mrs. Graham, I need a foundation in Rory's name to inspire the other African-American cadets to stay here and make it." Because some cadets would just play for their season and leave.
Sure.
Because they couldn't stand the discipline.
Sure.
Or, because coming to Army and Navy Academy, if you haven't had the discipline in a private school and coming to this rigid private school, it's kind of hard to adjust. It's a culture shock.
Yes.
And so I remember General Bliss used to send the boys that would get in trouble to my house because he would go, "Mrs. Graham will make you go to church. You'll be okay after a week at her house."
That's great.
He asked me to get a foundation because he would like something in Roy's name to inspire the other black cadets to stay, because Roy never got any marks. Now, the only thing he didn't like to do at the school was wear the tie. He would have the tie all the way down here until he stepped on campus. And Sergeant Brown would say, "Captain, put that tie up. You're a leader here." And Rory go, "Oh, I can't wait to graduate. Get out of this tie."
Oh, that's funny. We are going to take a brief pause. We're talking to Karen Graham, the founder and CEO of the Rory Graham Jr. Foundation. When we come back, we're going to talk about the foundation and its activities and what you can do to get involved, and we will be right back. So, Karen, when we were just sharing before the break, you told us about your son, Rory, and being at Army Navy Academy. Now, how did he pass away? And was it just like a year or so after he he graduated from the academy, or how long?
It was, he graduated with honors in 2004.
Oh, okay. So it was about 5 years after he graduated?
Right, 5 years after he graduated. He became a minister And he traveled all over the United States. He went to juvenile halls and high-risk areas in the communities, in Chicago, Detroit.
Wow.
He even went to Israel and got baptized in Jordan. So he was really into ministering to young people. In fact, he wanted to start a church in North County. Once he graduated from college, he was going to start a church in North County. Now, he had the chance to go to West Point.
Oh, wow.
But he decided to go to Westmont. And he graduated in 3 years, top honors there.
Wonderful.
And he came back and he was a youth minister at New Venture.
Okay.
Sean Mitchell was pastor there.
Yep.
And then he went over to North Coast Calvary Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was he went swimming at Lake Nacimiento and something happened in the water and he drowned.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry.
Yes. If it wasn't for God and my strength and my family, I would have lost it. Because Roy didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He wasn't in a gang. He was the all-American guy. In fact, I had girls call my house constantly. When is Pastor Rory coming back from a trip? I was like, I told Rory, I said, I'm not your secretary. Get a voicemail that says, I will be in town at this date.
That's funny. So in 2009, he had his drowning accident. And so how long was it after that you first founded the foundation?
I had a conversation with General Bliss February 14th of 2011, Black History Month of all months. And I was at a basketball game watching my godson, Devin Watson, play basketball. And he said, so he saw me, he said, Mrs. Graham, I need you to start a foundation. I turned around and I said, are you okay? Did you take the right medication? Me, start a foundation? He said, yes. You need to start a foundation to inspire the young men at Army and Navy Academy and in the community. I said, General Bliss, you're going to make me do that? He said, yes, you can do this, and I'll back you up. I researched it, and I found an accountant. All I had to do was pay them the money, and they registered me. I'm a 501c3.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I did it.
You did it.
But it was really hard because being a Black woman and there's so many scams, it's so hard for people to realize that I'm legit.
Sure.
For a little while, I would have fundraisers, but I would spend more money than I would make.
Yeah. And
then I was naive. I didn't know I could join the Chamber of Commerce until someone said, oh, yeah. We take 501c3s. I said, well, hallelujah.
And that's when we got a chance to meet, which is wonderful. So share with people what the goal of the foundation is at this point.
Well, in the community, I started a Dress for Success program at General Murray High School.
I saw that on your Facebook page. That's great.
Because the boys there, everybody thinks they're going to be an athlete or a rapper or something easy to do. That doesn't work for everybody.
Right. For very few does that work.
So you need to learn how to dress when you go for any kind of interview because your first impression is your lasting impression.
Yes.
So since it was an obstacle to get the foundation really started, because after General Bliss left, I hate to say this, but there was an employee at the academy who thought I wasn't good enough or wasn't financially able or had the know-how to start a big foundation. And he's no longer there, but he was from Georgia. He was Southern. He was a white man that smoked a cigar and told me, oh, you're a Black woman. You can't make that kind of money. And I was really hurt. So I started helping the boys in the community at General Murray High School. And at picture day, I teach them, I give them a white shirt and a tie, and I tell them a week before picture day, get your hair cut, wash your hair, because I'm going to teach you how to dress for an interview. And so over the 6 years now, I have dressed over 500 boys.
Wow, that's amazing.
Three of them One is a cashier at Albertsons, 2 work in the post office, and the other one worked for a trucking company.
Oh, that's great.
So every once in a while, they'll come back and say, "Hey, Miss G, we got it. I did it." So,
That's
and
wonderful.
so now that I've established myself, it was a journey that I had to go through.
Sure.
But now people know that I'm really serious.
Yeah.
And before I leave this earth and go to heaven, I like for Roy to have a foundation, a scholarship in
Yes.
his name. So the boys there can see that an African-American young man was successful here, because there's nothing to inspire them there. Nothing at all. Except for Devin Watson's name is on the floor where they won the CIF championship.
Sure.
But there's no story about a wonderful cadet there.
Right.
That's
Right.
of color.
Yes. Well, that's wonderful. So people who want to support these efforts, they can go to your Facebook page or your website?
Facebook page. My website had to come down because there was some glitches in it. But you can go to Facebook, you can go to Cash App, and you can Google Rory's name.
So it's Rory Graham Jr. Foundation.
Right. You can Google Rory Graham Jr. and the foundation. Now, when you Google Rory Graham Jr., you can see about the story that they have on Google.
Yeah, because there's a whole story from, of course, back in the time when he passed away, and or even this is even before. This is just a story about his life when he was playing and doing all this great stuff at Army Navy.
Yes. I had to deal with God. I said, "Okay, God, I'm pregnant. I don't want any ugly babies. I want them to be smart. I'll teach them to go to church. So please."
I love it. I love your bargaining with God.
Yes. Hey, if I'm going to sacrifice my life, I would want them to be handsome and smart. And the only way to do that was my grandmother say, "Give them back to the Lord." And in the community, we say, we drug the kids to church. You know how people say you're on drugs? Well, yeah, my kids were on drugs. They went to church.
They were
I
drugged
drugged to church.
Yes, that's great. Well, he was an extremely handsome young man and very successful at Army Navy Academy and in life. Obviously, we were robbed of him far too soon. So I'm very sorry for that, for all of our sakes, but for yours as mom especially. For those of you who are hearing this and you want to get involved and you want to support this amazing work, go to Facebook.com and the Rory Graham Jr. Foundation page. You can find there on Facebook and find out how you can support and give donations and become part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, anytime. Oh, by the way, if they want to know more, they can go to Ask Mama G podcast, because there's a commercial about Rory.
All right. Ask Mama G podcast.
Yes.
There we go. And so where is that a website? Or?
Oh, no, that's on YouTube.
Okay,
and
on YouTube.
It's ASK space MAMAG. And you can see me. And I talk about raising kids God's way.
Ask Mama G podcast.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
On YouTube.
On YouTube. There we go.
At 7 o'clock on Sunday.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on our Carlsbad People, Purpose, and Impact podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please hit the follow button on wherever you get your audio. And please tell a friend. We would love to hear your feedback, which you can share at carlsbadpodcast.com. You can leave us a review, ask a question, or leave an audio comment, which we can play on the show in the future. And that's all we have for today. Can't wait to see you next time on Carlsbad People, Purpose, and Impact. And remember, share some kindness today. It's free, creates goodwill, and makes you feel great.